I was digitizing old radio tapes as usual until one reel recorded the day of my death.
You are in the wrong timeline.
I'm Arlo. After graduation, I started an internship in a place many called the Graveyard of Radio Waves, a sealed room with no back exit, smelling heavily of old books and burnt magnetic tape. My job was simply to digitize piles of cassette tapes that no one bothered to remember. I thought it would just be a few sleepy afternoons with old radio sounds until I found a series of reels labeled Never Aired. The first tape was a mundane conversation, nothing noteworthy. By the second tape, I found it disturbingly familiar. The story was just like my own morning. Tapes 3 and 4 recounted my exact day, every minute detail, 6 reels, each recording a day, and I was the main character. I checked, thinking it was a prank, but the 6th tape chillingly mentioned a call I had just received this afternoon. Impossible. The call was only a few hours ago, yet the tape had recorded it beforehand. Then a 7th reel fell, right in front of me. I loaded the 7th tape, my hands trembling, a cold dread washing over me. The announcer's voice prophesied my accident tomorrow. I rewound it, only to hear a piercing, distorted laugh. The screen flashed a pale white figure, a red nose, a face cracked like a mask. I turned, but no one was there. Yet I felt a presence. Something had just been standing there. I ripped the plug out, but the tape kept playing. The horror unfolded before my very eyes.
If you hear this, then it's already too late for you.
A hoarse voice suddenly rasped. All the lights died, plunging me into suffocating darkness. But the tape's chilling sound continued to echo. A single red spot hovered in the middle of the room. It was an eye.
Arlo.
The haunting call echoed from all 4 directions, along with terrifying, guttural laughter. I spun around and saw him. A white-faced clown, empty black eyes, a terrifyingly wide, endless smile. He stood utterly still, that grin revealing gleaming white teeth. He took a step forward, each movement deliberate, straight towards me. I woke up on the floor, alone, the tape's sound gone, but the machine was still running. The screen displayed the words, 7th recording completed. Turning, the 7th reel lay on the table with a new, terrifying label, aired the day after Arlo's death. The tape automatically began to play. No one touched it. I never forgot that summer, the most terrifying time of my life. After my parents got divorced, I moved in with Aunt Clara, a distant relative of my family. Her house was eerily quiet, with curtains always drawn shut, whether it was day or night. That night, while I was sleeping, I heard a piano melody echoing through the silence. The haunting, sorrowful notes sounded like a choked sob in the night. When I went out to check, the sound abruptly stopped. The next morning, I asked Aunt Clara about it, but she said I had only been dreaming. But through Aunt Clara's evasive gaze, I knew she was lying. I felt that someone was inside, and I wanted to know who it was. That night, I didn't sleep, my eyes fixed on the door of my room. At exactly midnight, the piano music started again, louder than ever. I left my room and slowly approached the door across the hallway. As I drew near, the door creaked open. Bit by bit, I felt as if an invisible force was guiding my legs, pulling me into the room. It was a dark bedroom, dimly lit by the pale moonlight spilling through the window. Beside the bed stood an old, dusty piano. The most terrifying part was that the keys were moving on their own, though no one was sitting there. Suddenly, I saw a girl in a worn white dress standing near the window. Her long hair covered her face, revealing only a twisted, pale smile.
Come play with me.
In an instant, my whole body was yanked toward the piano. As my fingers touched the keys, fragmented memories flooded my mind. A girl in a white dress, sitting at the piano on a grand stage. She played with all her passion, her hands gliding gently over the keys. Suddenly, the ceiling light crashed down right where she sat. I screamed in fear, but no sound came out of my throat.
Jack, why did you come in here?
That was when I snapped back to reality. Aunt Clara stood beside me, her face pale with fear. Afterward, I tried to calm down and told her everything. Upon hearing it, Aunt Clara broke into sobs. It turned out that the room across from mine had belonged to Emily, her daughter. Emily had loved playing the piano, but an accident that year left her unable to play ever again. Unable to accept the truth, Emily took her own life in that very room. Since that night, Aunt Clara locked the room tightly and never let me enter it again. But every night, the sound of the piano still echoed, achingly beautiful and filled with sorrow. I was trapped in a room with no way out and didn't remember who I was, but the walls around me were telling the story of every crime I had committed. I woke up in a sealed room. No windows, no doors, only a dim light shone straight down from the ceiling, flickering as if about to go out completely. I didn't remember who I was, didn't know why I was here. No phone, no clock, and no one else in this room. I tried banging my hands against the wall, screamed, but there was no echo. It was as if even sound was imprisoned in this room. I started to panic. My bare feet stepped on the cold stone floor. My head spun. I felt like I was being punished for something I couldn't possibly remember. I began walking along the walls, my hand gently gliding, searching for traces. At first, I only saw small scratches, like those made by fingernails. But then, as my eyes adjusted to the weak light, I realized they were drawings, scribbled lines, but still clear enough to see a man holding something like a knife. On another wall, I saw the scene of a person being dragged across the floor. Rough, distorted images. But there was something terrifyingly familiar about them. Then I remembered I was the one in that picture, the one holding that knife. Each scene appeared vividly. I strangled a woman. I stabbed a child. I couldn't believe that I was the one who had done those things. In a state of confusion, I screamed, clawed at the wall, trying to erase those drawings. But the more I did that, the more new lines appeared on the walls. Then I heard hundreds, thousands of whispers echoing in my head. They blamed me, cursed me, reminded me of every face I had killed. And when I collapsed in exhaustion, I realized this was not a real place. This was the prison of my mind, where my soul was being confined for the unforgivable. I didn't know how long had passed. Time no longer had meaning for me here. I didn't die, but I didn't live either. I no longer felt anything in my body. All I had left were memories, haunting wrapping around me like vines that bound me tightly. People often dreamed about magic lamps and 3 wishes. But what if those wishes turned into curses? I was Kevin, an office worker living alone in a small house in the suburbs. That day, on my way home from work, I passed by a roadside dump and was drawn to something glittering in a pile of old junk. It was a porcelain teapot with chipped glaze and faded patterns. But something about it felt like it came from a fairy tale. A faint light seemed to flicker from it, strangely pulling me in. I picked it up, brushed off the dust, and decided to take it home as a decoration for my bedroom. That night, I dreamed of a soft whisper in my ear.
Rub me. 3 wishes will come true.
I jolted awake. The room was still pitch dark. The teapot sat quietly on the shelf. I turned on the light and stared at it, a curious feeling welling up inside me. I picked up the teapot, thinking of the old tales I had read, and rubbed it. Nothing happened. I laughed at myself, feeling silly, and went back to sleep. The next morning, just as I stepped out the gate, the neighbor's dog rushed out, barking furiously.
Why don't you just drop dead?
When I came home that evening, I froze. The dog was lying stiff and lifeless right in front of the house across the street. A strange, indescribable feeling crept over me. Later that night, after a shower, I turned on the TV and began watching the news. They were reporting a terrorist group holding 20 hostages in a shopping mall.
Why not just kill them already? Why bother taking hostages?
And minutes later, the next news update came in. All 20 hostages have been killed for unknown reasons. I shivered, frozen in front of the TV. Could this really be a coincidence? I tried to recall everything and suddenly remembered the teapot and the strange dream from the night before. At that moment, I panicked as I remembered the phone call with my mother at noon. In a fit of anger, I had shouted, "Did you live just to make my life miserable?" I grabbed my phone and called her over and over, but no one answered. In despair, I ran to find the teapot, determined to destroy it. I tore the room apart, but it was gone. The teapot had vanished without a trace. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was a message from my aunt. "Your mom is gone." On her stomach was carved, "Third wish,